History's greatest engineering secrets are not found in any book. They are built into the walls around us. We are surrounded by 30 timeless monuments that preserve forgotten technologies, silent masterpieces holding blueprints our modern world has misplaced. By the end of this journey, you will see the past not as a graveyard of old ideas, but as a vibrant toolbox for our future. How did a medieval cathedral become a giant acoustic instrument? What secret in Persian desert ice houses could revolutionize how we stay cool? We are about to unlock a living library of innovation, where every stone tells a story of elegant problem solving. What forgotten wisdom do you hope we might rediscover? To truly grasp the genius locked in these stones, we must leave our modern categories behind. In the medieval world, the architect was not a separate specialist from the philosopher or the theologian. The very act of building was a sacred dialogue, a physical prayer. Geometry was not just math, it was the language of a divine creator, believed to be embedded in the fabric of the universe itself. A master builder had to be a polymath, fluent in this celestial language. He needed to understand the strength of local limestone, the path of the sun across the sky to light an altar at a specific hour, the way sound waves would travel through a vaulted space to carry a chant. Every calculation from the foundation to the spire was infused with a deeper purpose to lift the human spirit toward the heavens. This was a technology of meaning, where efficiency was measured not in output, but in transcendence. Their toolkit was a fascinating fusion, pieces of Roman engineering manuals preserved in monastery libraries, mixed with generations of local craft knowledge on how to work with the forest's oak or the region's clay. In some places, this blend grew richer still through trade routes, incorporating advanced mathematics from the Islamic world or innovative mechanical ideas glimpsed from afar. What we often call forgotten technologies were rarely failures. Instead, they were solutions perfectly tailored to their time and place, crafted with an intimacy to material and purpose that mass production would later overlook. They were not replaced because they were bad, but because the world's priorities shifted toward scale and speed. This is why these monuments are such irreplaceable archives. They are not just buildings, they are the preserved thought processes of a different kind of technological mind, one that saw no divide between the practical and the profound. This brings us to our map, the specific criteria guiding our journey to 30 monuments. A structure must meet two distinct tests to earn its place here. The first is timelessness. This is not merely about age, but about enduring power. These are places that have weathered centuries, not in spite of their design, but because of it. Their stones hold a presence that continues to command awe, to function in ways we can still feel, whether it is the perfect stillness of an ancient tomb or the way light floods a space designed 800 years ago. Their longevity is the first proof of their technological mastery. The second, more elusive criterion is a forgotten technology. This means a specific, ingenious solution, a piece of applied knowledge that was once revolutionary but has since faded from common practice. We are not looking for simple craftsmanship, though that is present, but for identifiable systems, the medieval equivalent of a patented invention. It could be a lost recipe for a mortar that heals its own cracks, a building layout that harnesses geothermal energy for heating, or a vault designed to amplify whispers from one corner to another. These are the secrets we are hunting, the tangible echoes of a different school of thought. Our search spans the globe, though a remarkable concentration emerges from the medieval bridges between Europe, the Byzantine world, and the Islamic empires, a period of extraordinary cross-pollination of ideas. Each site we will explore stands as a perfect physical case study, a single chapter in this vast, unread manual of human ingenuity. The very ground seems to hold its breath in the vast, shadowed space beneath that impossible dome. When the Hagia Sophia was consecrated in the year 537, it did not merely open a church, it declared a new architectural reality. For over 1,000 years, its main dome would remain the widest in the world, a soaring hemisphere of brick and mortar that appears to drift weightless upon a ring of 40 windows. This is the illusion of celestial suspension, a theological idea made stone, and its secret lies in a forgotten fusion of geometry and material science. The dome does not rest on a conventional circular wall, which would have limited its size and created crushing outward forces. Instead, Byzantine engineers employed a brilliant solution called pendentives. Picture 4 massive, curved triangular segments, like the curved sails of a ship, filling the corners of a square base. These pendentives act as a graceful transition, a geometric sleight of hand that gathers the immense weight of the circular dome and channels it smoothly down into 4 colossal piers at the square's corners. It is a masterclass in load distribution, turning a structural challenge into an aesthetic triumph, but the genius goes deeper into the very fabric of the dome itself. To achieve such a vast span without collapsing under its own weight, the builders sourced a specific, lightweight brick from the island of Rhodes. These bricks were exceptionally porous, almost sponge-like, drastically reducing the overall load on the delicate pendentives below. Between the stones, historians note the presence of thin lead sheets, a primitive but effective seismic damping system designed to absorb the shocks of the earthquakes that frequently shake the region. Perhaps most intriguing of all is the mortar binding it all together, a recipe that has kept the structure standing for nearly 15 centuries. Research suggests its composition, likely involving crushed ceramic and specific local materials, gave it a flexibility and strength that modern scientists are still working to fully replicate. The Hagia Sophia is not a static monument. It is a living lesson in holistic engineering where every material choice, every geometric calculation served a single visionary goal: to make the heavens feel tangibly close. Yet for all its Byzantine brilliance, the Hagia Sophia's dome owes a profound debt to an even older, more mysterious predecessor. Standing in the heart of Rome for nearly 2,000 years, the Pantheon presents a challenge that defies simple chronology. Its vast coffered dome, the world's largest ever made from unreinforced concrete, is a silent monument to a material science that vanished with the empire that perfected it. This is not medieval, but its shadow stretched across the entire Middle Ages, a ghost of a lost industrial art that later builders could admire but never truly replicate. The secret was in the recipe, a material the Romans called opus cementitium. While our modern concrete relies on Portland cement, the Roman formula was something else entirely. Its key ingredient was a fine, volcanic ash known as pozzolana, mined from the hills around the Bay of Naples. When mixed with lime and water, this ash triggered a slow, complex chemical reaction, forming crystals that interlaced and grew stronger over centuries, not just decades. This was a living stone. It could even cure underwater, making it perfect for harbors and aqueducts. But its true masterpiece was overhead. The Pantheon's builders executed a daring feat of material engineering. They carefully graded the concrete mix used in the dome itself, using lighter, porous aggregates like pumice stone at the very top to reduce weight. The dome's thickness subtly tapers as it rises, and its interior is carved into those iconic square coffers, which are not merely decorative. They act as a form of structural relief, removing excess mass without sacrificing strength, much like the ribs of a leaf. All this weight is channeled down into walls that are over 20 feet thick. After the Western Roman Empire's political structure faded, the institutional knowledge required to produce this specific concrete, with its precise sourcing and mixing techniques, gradually dissolved. Medieval architects gazing upon such ruins were left with a puzzle, a breathtaking result but no instruction manual. They could not copy the recipe, so they were forced to innovate in completely different directions, developing the complex systems of ribs, buttresses, and vaults we associate with Gothic cathedrals. The Pantheon, therefore, stands as a permanent benchmark, a reminder that technological progress is not always a straight line. Sometimes a peak is reached, and then the path to it grows over, leaving behind a solitary, perfect artifact that asks a haunting question: what other formulas for resilience have we misplaced along the way? A labyrinth lies inlaid on the floor, a single path winding through 11 concentric circles toward a center you can see but cannot quickly reach. For medieval pilgrims at Chartres Cathedral, walking this path on their knees was an act of profound devotion, a miniature pilgrimage within the grand one. Yet this labyrinth, often seen as purely spiritual, is actually a key to the cathedral's hidden operating system, a physical manifestation of the sacred geometry that governs every stone of this high Gothic masterpiece. Here, the technology was not a machine, but a mathematical philosophy made manifest. The master builders did not use blueprints as we understand them. They used geometry derived from the natural world, ratios believed to reflect the very mind of the creator. Two constants were their essential tools: the golden ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1, found in the spiral of a nautilus shell, and the square root of 2, about 1.414, the proportion of a square's side to its diagonal. These were not decorative afterthoughts, they were the generative seeds of the entire structure. The labyrinth's own dimensions are built upon these proportions, a clue left in plain sight. This geometric rigor dictated the cathedral's floor plan, the height of its nave, the spacing of its columns, and the breathtaking reach of its spires. It was a unifying code that ensured structural stability emerged from aesthetic harmony, where the forces of gravity were distributed along lines of perfect proportion. The cathedral itself becomes a kind of giant stone calculator, solving for beauty and strength simultaneously. This represents a forgotten technological paradigm, a holistic design philosophy where the engineer, the artist, and the theologian were the same person, guided by a shared belief that truth was mathematical. In our modern world, these disciplines are often separate, with engineers focusing on load calculations and architects on form. Chartres stands as a monumental argument for their fundamental unity, a building where the very act of walking a symbolic path reinforces the mathematical order of the universe it was built to celebrate. But the most breathtaking climate control system is not hidden in the walls, it is the walls themselves. Step inside the Nasir al-Mulk Mosque at dawn, and the air itself feels like a crafted material, cool and still, a silent contrast to the shimmering heat of the Persian day outside. While visitors gaze upward at the famous stained glass that throws pools of liquid color across the floor, the real genius of this place is working unseen all around them. This is the domain of the Badgir, the Windcatcher, a passive architectural technology so elegant it feels like nature itself harnessed as an appliance. These are not mere decorative towers, they are sophisticated air-handling units carved from brick and mortar. Each Badgir is strategically oriented to capture the prevailing winds, its tall shaft acting as a funnel that guides even the gentlest breeze down into the heart of the building. But the system is far more clever than simple ventilation. Inside, the captured air is often directed over a small pool of water or through a channel, a process that cools it through evaporation before it spills into the living spaces below. Meanwhile, the sun heats the air inside the structure, causing it to rise and exit through other openings, creating a constant, gentle circulation powered solely by physics. This is not a standalone gadget, it is the centerpiece of a holistic bioclimatic design. The mosque's famously thick walls provide immense thermal mass, absorbing heat during the day and slowly releasing coolness at night. These walls often work in concert with qanats, the ancient underground aqueducts that brought fresh water from the mountains, cooling the earth around the foundations. A central courtyard pool further moderates the temperature and reflects light. Together, these elements form a perfectly integrated ecosystem, a building that breathes. This forgotten technology represents a profound dialogue with place, an understanding of local wind patterns, solar angles, and material properties that created comfort without a single watt of electricity. In an age of energy-intensive air conditioning, the silent, sustainable logic of the Windcatcher offers a quiet question. Have we forgotten how to listen to and work with the climate we build within? A different kind of heat signature marks the Scottish Highlands, one that has puzzled historians for centuries. On remote hilltops like Tap O' North, the stone ramparts of ancient forts are not merely stacked, they are strangely melted. Entire sections of wall have been transformed into a brittle, glassy slag, a process called vitrification. These are not the remains of a catastrophic fire, but likely the evidence of a forgotten pyrotechnical art, a technology of intense heat wielded with purpose. To fuse solid stone into glass requires a sustained inferno, temperatures soaring well over 1,100 degrees Celsius. Achieving this in an open, windswept hill fort, far from a modern furnace, is a staggering logistical puzzle. The leading theory suggests it was a deliberate, if extreme, construction technique. Builders may have created walls with a core of timber laced between stone faces, then set this wooden skeleton ablaze. The resulting conflagration would have been a controlled catastrophe, melting the stone surfaces just enough to flow and fuse as they cooled, creating a monolithic, harder bond that would have been incredibly difficult for attackers to breach. Other interpretations point toward a massive ceremonial practice, where the lighting of the fort could have been a symbolic act of consecration or a display of communal power, permanently altering the site's physical nature. The true method and intent remain just out of reach, locked within the cooled glass. These vitrified forts stand as stark monuments to a lost operational knowledge, a community's ability to summon and direct a geological force for a goal we can only guess at. They challenge our assumptions about the technological capabilities of early societies, presenting a silent, smoldering question etched into the landscape itself, a question about the lengths to which people would go to make their mark and their home permanent. The sound of water is the constant melody of the Alhambra, a gentle counterpoint to the Andalusian sun. In this palace fortress, every whisper from a fountain and every shimmering reflection in a pool is not a decorative accident, but the audible proof of a forgotten hydraulic genius. While the intricate stucco and tilework captivate the eye, the true technological masterpiece of the Nasrid dynasty flows silently beneath your feet. This is the domain of the acequias, an ancient network of irrigation canals that transformed a dry hillside into a self-sustaining paradise. Moorish engineers began their work not at the palace walls, but miles away in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They constructed a primary canal, the acequia Real, with a precision that feels almost supernatural. Using nothing more than simple sighting tools and an intuitive grasp of topography, they carved a channel with a perfectly calculated gravitational gradient, just steep enough to keep water moving steadily from the Douro River, but gentle enough to prevent erosion. This was the lifeblood of the entire complex, but the forgotten technology is not the canal itself, it is the comprehensive, integrated system it fed. Water was first directed into massive storage tanks like the Albacon, acting as reservoirs to regulate supply. From there, a hidden network of smaller acequias, clay pipes, and aqueducts distributed it with meticulous control. They employed early pressure regulators, using variations in pipe diameter and cleverly placed turns to manage flow, creating everything from the powerful jets of the Court of the Lions to the serene, mirror-like sheets of the Comer's palace pools. Every drop served multiple masters. It coursed through the general life gardens for agriculture, it cooled the palace rooms through evaporation in courtyards, and it provided the essential ingredient for the breathtaking aesthetic of perpetual movement and reflection. Water was not a utility to be hidden. It was the unifying design element treated with the same reverence as geometry or calligraphy. This holistic vision, where beauty and utility were inseparable partners in engineering, stands in quiet contrast to our modern world, where water infrastructure is often buried, purely functional and out of sight. The Alhambra reminds us that the most advanced technology can also be the most poetic, a lesson in sustainability written not in a manual, but in the endless, gentle music of flowing water. The shimmering lead dome of St. Paul's Cathedral is more than a London landmark, it is a patient chemist. While the eye sees a stately grey roof crowning Sir Christopher Wren's Baroque masterpiece, a slow, silent reaction has been at work for over 3 centuries. This is not a story of decay, but of a forgotten partnership between material and environment, a self-preserving technology built into the very skin of the building. The key lies in the lead itself. When exposed to the damp, sooty air of the city, the metal does not simply corrode in a destructive way. Instead, it undergoes a gradual transformation, developing a thin, stable layer of lead carbonate, a pale patina that clings tightly to the surface. This layer is the cathedral's built-in maintenance crew. It is slightly soluble in rainwater, which means that every gentle London shower performs a dual function. As the rain washes over the vast curves of the dome, it dissolves a microscopic amount of this patina, carrying away with it the accumulated grime and atmospheric pollutants that have settled there. The process is constant and self-renewing, a low-tech cycle of cleansing and reformation that has protected the underlying metal for generations. This is a profound shift in perspective. We often think of aging in materials as a problem to be solved, a defect requiring constant intervention with paints, sealants, or replacements. Here, the natural chemical aging of the lead was not a flaw to fight, but a beneficial feature to embrace and harness. The material's own interaction with its environment became the maintenance strategy. This wisdom extended to its physical properties as well. Lead's legendary malleability was essential to realizing Wren's ambitious vision. The complex, double-shelled dome with its ornate curves and lantern could not be covered with rigid tiles or planks. Instead, craftsmen shaped vast, durable sheets of lead directly over the wooden substructure, like a flexible, waterproof skin molded to the cathedral's very bones. This fabrication technique, using a material that could be worked cold and would last for centuries, was a perfect marriage of available technology and architectural ambition. In our modern quest for ever newer, more complex composite materials, the elegant simplicity of St. Paul's lead roof poses a quiet question. Have we forgotten how to work with the inherent, long-term properties of the materials we already have, to design not just for the first storm, but for the 10,000th gentle rain? The winter solstice sun has not yet broken the horizon, but the ancient stones of Newgrange are already waiting. Deep within the green hills of Ireland, a monument built over 5,000 years ago, long before the pyramids of Egypt or Stonehenge, holds a secret appointment with the cosmos. This massive, circular mound of earth and stone is not a medieval structure, yet it stands as a profound ancestral touchstone, a demonstration of a technological idea so powerful it would echo through millennia, the architecture as astronomical instrument. At its heart lies a long, narrow passageway, a dark tunnel built from colossal, precisely placed stones leading to a central chamber. The forgotten technology here is not a tool, but a targeting system carved into the landscape itself. The builders aligned this 60-foot passage with such staggering accuracy that for a few precious minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a single, narrow beam of sunlight pierces the darkness. It travels the length of the passage like a golden arrow, finally flooding the inner chamber with light for approximately 17 minutes before retreating. To achieve this, the Neolithic engineers needed a deep, generational understanding of the solar cycle. They had to observe the sun's slow migration along the horizon for years, marking its southernmost point of sunrise with unwavering precision. Then they had to translate that celestial data into a physical engineering project of immense scale, moving multi-ton curbstones and carefully angling the roof box, the special window above the entrance, to create this perfect fleeting event. This was more than a calendar, it was a form of data storage written in stone and sunlight. The alignment served as a societal anchor, marking the year's darkest point and the promised return of the light, a moment that likely held profound ceremonial meaning for the community that gathered there. In this act, they merged timekeeping, spirituality, and civil engineering into a single, monumental act. The knowledge required to build Newgrange represents a foundational layer of human technological thought, one that whispers to the later medieval master builders who also sought to capture light and meaning in stone, reminding us that the urge to build our understanding of the universe into our surroundings is one of humanity's oldest and most enduring forms of innovation. The black and white Tudor house is not just a charming relic, it is a masterclass in dynamic engineering. Those distinctive, dark oak beams set against white plaster are the visible skeleton of a forgotten construction philosophy, one that saw wood not as a dead commodity, but as a living, breathing partner in the building process. The entire system began with a profound understanding of material. Tudor carpenters preferred to work with green oak, timber that was freshly felled and still full of moisture. This might seem counterintuitive, as green wood is known to warp and crack as it dries, but here that very tendency was not a flaw, it was the core of the technology. A master carpenter would expertly cut a complex array of joints, the mortise and tenon, the scarf joint, the lap joint, with absolute precision. These pieces were then assembled into the frame while the wood was still supple. As the structure stood and the oak slowly seasoned over the following years, a remarkable transformation occurred. The wood shrank and hardened in place, causing those precisely cut joints to tighten like a vise, locking the entire frame into an incredibly rigid, monolithic structure. The process was a patient collaboration between human intention and natural process. The iconic curved timbers, those graceful arcs that give Tudor houses their character, were rarely forced into shape. Instead, carpenters would seek out trees that had grown with a natural bend, often from the junction of a major branch and the trunk. By using this naturally curved grain, they harnessed the wood's innate tensile strength, making the curved member far stronger than any piece that had been sawn straight and then bent. This was a whole system approach, from forest management to final assembly. Every peg, every joint, every beam was part of a flexible, organic whole designed to settle, shift, and find its final strength over time. This dynamic technology stands in quiet contrast to our modern reliance on standardized, kiln-dried lumber and metal fasteners like nails and screws. Our materials are engineered for consistency and immediate stability, but the Tudor frame was engineered for longevity through adaptation. These homes have flexed with centuries of settling ground and shifting seasons, not in spite of their green wood origins, but because of them. They represent a profound technological dialogue, one where the builder listened to the material and designed a system that grew stronger with age, a lesson in resilience written in oak and plaster. A fortress does not merely stand against a siege, it thinks. Perched on a lonely hill in Syria, Krak des Chevaliers is less a castle and more a three-dimensional chessboard of stone, its every line and curve a deliberate calculation in the grim mathematics of survival. This Crusader stronghold represents the absolute zenith of pre-gunpowder defensive science, a forgotten technology where the architecture itself was the primary weapon. Its genius lies not in one clever feature, but in a holistic philosophy of defensive geometry, a total system designed to control movement, sightlines, and ultimately, fate. The first rule of this geometry was redundancy. The castle is built as a series of concentric rings, an outer wall guarding an even stronger inner ward. An attacker breaching the first barrier would not find victory but a trap, a narrow killing ground exposed to fire from the taller inner walls on all sides. Every angle of approach was studied and neutralized. The base of the walls flared out into a smooth, steeply sloping stone skirt called a glacis. This ingenious feature served two brutal purposes. It made scaling ladders nearly impossible to position securely, and it deflected the blows of battering rams, causing them to skid harmlessly off the stone. But the castle's intelligence was most acute in its details. Arrow slits were not simple holes. They were carefully engineered cross-shaped openings, splayed inward to give a defender a wide field of fire while presenting only a tiny, nearly unhittable target from outside. Above them, stone galleries called machicolations projected from the parapets. These were the castle's active defense system. Through holes in their floors, defenders could rain down stones, boiling liquids, or other objects directly onto attackers who had reached the base of the wall, a zone otherwise shielded from arrow fire. Even the staircases were weapons, built with tight, clockwise spirals so a right-handed defender retreating upward had room to swing his sword, while a right-handed attacker climbing was constantly hindered by the central column. This was a system with no blind spots, a machine that forced every enemy advance into a pre-planned funnel of vulnerability. Krak des Chevaliers was a fortress designed by committees of hardened knights who had seen every trick of siege warfare, and they built their collective experience into the very mortar. Its eventual obsolescence came not from a flaw in its thinking, but from a change in the rules of the game, when gunpowder cannons could simply punch through walls that were designed to stop men and ladders. Yet, as a monument to a specific, lost technological art, it remains peerless. It teaches us that the most formidable technology is often a system, a deep understanding of human behavior and physical forces, crystallized into an environment where every stone has a job to do. The human voice is a fragile instrument, easily lost in a vast stone cavern. High above the heads of the medieval faithful, hidden within the very ribs of the vaults, lie silent witnesses to a forgotten auditory science. Embedded deep in the walls and ceilings of many Gothic cathedrals are large, unglazed clay pots, their mouths sealed against the masonry. These are acoustic jars or resonators, a subtle technology that transformed the cavernous nave from an echoing cave into a resonant instrument. This was architectural acoustics engineering, centuries before the science had a name. The master builders were not just sculptors of light and stone, but of sound itself. Each vessel, carefully sized and shaped, was a primitive but brilliant filter. The principle was one of sympathetic vibration. When a specific musical note or vocal frequency filled the space, it would cause the air inside a jar tuned to that same frequency to vibrate in harmony. This sympathetic resonance did two things. First, it absorbed some of the energy of that particular sound wave, subtly damping the chaotic echoes and long reverberations that could turn a choir's chant into an indecipherable muddle. Second, by resonating, the jar would then re-emit a purer, sustained version of that frequency, effectively amplifying and clarifying it. The result was not mere loudness but clarity. The spoken word from the pulpit gained definition. The complex harmonies of plainchant gained separation and an otherworldly lift, as if the stones themselves were singing in support. This intentional sculpting of sonic space had a profound spiritual purpose. The goal was auditory transcendence, to make the divine word and sacred song crystal clear to every listener. fostering a shared, immersive experience. Modern concert halls spend millions on computer modeling and synthetic acoustic panels to achieve a similar controlled reverberation. The medieval builders, with their empirical understanding born of trial, observation, and a deep listening to their own spaces, achieved it with fired clay and geometric intuition. Their forgotten technology asks us to reconsider what we hear in these ancient spaces. The awe we feel is not just visual, it is vibrational, a product of a hidden orchestra of silent pots still shaping the air and our experience after all these centuries. The stone ribs of a Gothic vault appear to defy gravity through geometry alone, but at Badgir's Cathedral, that defiance had a secret helper, hidden deep within the mortar joints, running like dark veins through the pale limestone, are long hand-forged iron bars. This is not a later repair, but an original, ingenious design feature, a forgotten prototype for the steel skeletons inside our modern skyscrapers. While the master builders of the High Gothic era are celebrated for their flying buttresses and pointed arches, the innovation at Badgir's represents a quieter revolution, the first conscious use of metal as tensile reinforcement within masonry. Think of a stone arch. Its great weakness is a tendency to spread outward under its own weight, a force called thrust. The flying buttress was the external answer to this problem, a stone arm bracing the wall from the outside. But at Badgir's, the builders added an internal solution. Medieval blacksmiths produced iron bars, some over 10 feet long, which were carefully laid in the bedding mortar as the vaults were constructed. These bars acted like the tendons in a human body, providing crucial tensile strength, the ability to resist stretching and pulling that the stone blocks alone lacked. They were the hidden sinew that allowed the stone skeleton to achieve its breathtaking slenderness and height. This was Proto-Reinforced masonry, a brilliant hybrid technology that stands as a missing link between the pure stone logic of the Romans and the steel frame engineering of the 19th century. It allowed for more daring spatial experiments, lighter walls, and larger windows, pushing the Gothic quest for height and light one step further. The true lost art, however, lies in the metallurgy itself. These iron armatures have survived for over 800 years, embedded in damp mortar that should have caused them to rust, expand, and catastrophically crack the very stone they were meant to protect. This suggests the smiths employed a forgotten technique, perhaps a specific forging process that created a more resistant iron, or an early form of corrosion protection, like a coating of linseed oil or a lime wash, applied before the bar was set. Their success was a precise marriage of material science and architectural vision, a collaboration between the forge and the tracing floor that has kept the cathedral's lofty aspirations securely anchored. In these hidden iron tendons, we see the quiet birth of an idea that would reshape the world, the moment builders first understood that the future of construction lay not in choosing between materials, but in weaving their strengths together into something entirely new. Beneath the sun-baked plains of central Turkey, an entire inverted civilization lies in wait. The underground cities of Cappadocia, like the sprawling maze of Derinkuyu, are not mere caves, but monuments to a forgotten technology of excavation and subterranean survival. Carved by hand from the region's soft volcanic rock called tuff, these complexes descend as many as 18 levels into the earth, a hidden metropolis capable of sheltering tens of thousands of people for months at a time. This was not a temporary refuge, but a fully realized underground city, and its engineering represents a breathtaking dialogue with the constraints of the earth itself. The first and most vital challenge was the very breath of the city. Without constant fresh air, such a deep settlement would suffocate in days. The builder's solution was a network of ventilation shafts, some plunging over 180 feet straight down through the rock. These were not simple holes, but carefully engineered chimneys that harnessed the natural principle of convection. The temperature difference between the cool underground chambers and the warmer surface air created a constant, gentle draft, cycling out stale air and drawing in fresh oxygen without a single moving part. It was a passive life support system of astonishing elegance. Water, the other essential, was secured with equal ingenuity. Deep, protected wells were dug down to the water table, their openings meticulously sealed from the surface to prevent contamination during a siege. This ensured a clean, reliable supply even when the world above was hostile. Movement and defense were choreographed with stone. Narrow, low corridors forced any potential invaders to proceed in single file, while massive, circular stone doors weighing up to half a ton could be rolled across key passages to seal off entire sections. The planning foresight here is staggering. To carve a stable, multi-level city without modern surveying tools or structural calculations required a generational understanding of the rock's properties and load-bearing limits. They had to plan for waste management, storage, communal spaces, and worship areas, all within a labyrinth of total darkness, lit only by oil lamps. This was a peak of communal urban planning born not from ambition, but from necessity, a testament to a society that chose to dig in rather than give up. In these silent, carved halls, we find a different kind of monument, one that speaks not of reaching for the heavens, but of mastering the earth, creating resilience not by building up, but by building down. The steady rhythm of the tides is the oldest clock on Earth, a lunar pulse that medieval engineers learned to harness as a source of pure, predictable power. In the quiet Suffolk estuary at Woodbridge, a water wheel has been turning to this celestial schedule for over 8 centuries. The Woodbridge Tide Mill, documented as early as the year 1170, is not merely an old building by the water. It is a monument to a forgotten industrial art, the technology of lunar energy. This was a machine that used the entire coastal basin as its engine. The system was an elegant dialogue with nature. At high tide, a complex arrangement of sluice gates would be opened, allowing the rising seawater to flood a large, artificial mill pond. Once the pond was full, the gates were sealed, trapping millions of gallons of water as the tide began its inevitable retreat. Now the mill held the sea captive. Only then were the lower gates opened, releasing the pent-up water in a controlled torrent that spun the massive water wheel with relentless force for hours, grinding grain into flour long after the tide had ebbed. The forgotten genius lies in the specific, accumulated knowledge this required. Millers needed an intimate, generational understanding of local tidal patterns, the lunar cycle's influence on spring and neap tides, and how seasonal weather might affect water levels. This was applied astronomy. The engineering, too, was sophisticated. The sluice gates had to be perfectly watertight to hold back immense pressure, yet operable by a single person using a simple winch. The water wheel itself was a masterpiece of adaptive design, often built to function efficiently whether the water flowed over it or under it, depending on the mill's specific layout. This was a pre-industrial renewable energy grid, a factory powered by the moon's gravity, producing no smoke and requiring no fuel, only patience and precise timing. Its operation was seamlessly woven into the natural rhythm of the place, a sustainable partnership with the environment that lasted for generations. Modern tidal power plants, with their massive turbines and barrage systems, are essentially rediscovering this ancient principle on a colossal technological scale. The quiet mill on the estuary stands as a humble but profound reminder that some of the most powerful solutions are not about conquering nature's cycles, but about learning to move in time with them. The thread of Roman concrete did not completely snap. In the quiet, remote corners of medieval Britain, a different kind of monastery was rising, its thick walls bound by a mystery. While the grand imperial recipe for the Pantheon's dome was lost, some monastic communities appear to have guarded, or perhaps independently rediscovered, a crucial fragment of that ancient material science. Their secret was not in vast vaults, but in the humble mortar between the stones. Analysis of early medieval stonework in places like certain Scottish and Irish abbeys reveals an exceptionally durable binding agent, one that stands in stark contrast to the simpler lime mortars of the time. This was no ordinary mix. Researchers suggest it may have intentionally included crushed brick, tile, or even specific local volcanic materials, a technique echoing the Roman use of coxiopsto. When these ceramic fragments were added to slaked lime, they triggered a subtle pozzolanic reaction, similar to the ancient Roman process, creating a mortar that was harder, more water-resistant, and far more long-lasting. This was a pseudo-concrete, a localized rebirth of a forgotten technology. The knowledge was likely secretive and closely held, passed down not in books, but within the closed circles of monastic building lodges. These brotherhoods of Mason monks were unique repositories of practical knowledge, combining spiritual discipline with hands-on craft. In their isolation, they could experiment over generations, perhaps stumbling upon the reinforcing power of fired clay by observing the ruins of old Roman villas scattered across the landscape. Their thick-walled, enduring abbeys, built to withstand both the harsh climate and the tumults of the age, stand as quiet monuments to this institutional memory. They represent a fragile but vital thread of continuous material science, a testament to how dedicated communities can preserve a flicker of advanced knowledge even through an age often mislabeled as dark. It was not a widespread revival, but a precious pocket of understanding, ensuring that the torch of one great technology, though dimmed, was never fully extinguished. A wooden ship sails through a forest, its prow not pointed toward the sea, but toward the sky. The staved churches of Norway, like the breathtaking Borgund, are not simply wooden buildings, they are inverted Viking longships, their architecture born from a mastery of the northern timber that surrounded them. For over 800 years, they have stood sentinel in damp, snowy valleys, a defiance of the very notion that wood is a temporary material. Their longevity is no accident, but the result of a forgotten technological system, a complete philosophy of woodcraft from forest to final joint. The process began with a deep, seasonal wisdom. Master builders selected their timber not in the lush summer, but in the depths of winter when the sap was down and the wood held the least moisture. Each log was carefully debarked, and often its surface was charred with fire or liberally coated with pine tar, creating a natural preservative barrier against insects and fungal rot. But the true genius was in the assembly, a method known as the stave or stave construction. Imagine a massive wooden skeleton. Vertical timber posts, the staves, are slotted into horizontal sill beams at the bottom and connected to wall plates at the top, creating a rigid frame. The walls themselves are not solid logs, but vertical planks fitted into grooves on the inside of the posts. This design creates a critical air gap between the outer wall and the interior, allowing the entire structure to breathe. Moisture cannot become trapped, it simply evaporates away, a passive drying system built into the walls themselves. The roof, a cascade of overlapping shingles, extends far beyond the walls, acting like a giant umbrella to shield the foundation from driving rain and snowmelt. Every element is designed for water to shed away, as if the building itself is perpetually shaking off the climate. Yet for all this precision, the structure was never meant to be rigid. The complex, interlocking joints, resembling a colossal three-dimensional puzzle carved with axes and augers, are engineered with a subtle flexibility. As the fierce Nordic winds pound the church, the entire frame can sway and shift just enough to dissipate the force without cracking. The weight of the tiered roofs is distributed through this jointed network, channeling immense loads gracefully down into the earth. This represents a pinnacle of material-specific engineering, a technology perfectly adapted to its context. It emerged from an intimate conversation between the carpenter and the spruce pine forest, a system so complete it required no imported stone or iron. Its gradual displacement by continental stone building traditions was less about superiority and more about a shift in cultural influence, a forgetting of a local logic that had turned a perishable material into a legacy. In these silent, tar-black churches, we hear a question whispered on the wind. Have we, in our quest for universal materials, lost the art of listening so closely to what a single, local resource can truly do? Perfect geometry can feel cold and lifeless to the human eye. High on the Acropolis, the Parthenon presents a paradox, a building celebrated for its mathematical purity that is, in fact, a masterpiece of deliberate, calculated imperfection. Every line we perceive as straight is a gentle curve. Every column that seems uniform is a subtly sculpted form. These are the refinements, a forgotten technology not of load-bearing, but of perceptual engineering, an ancient Greek art of visual correction that would echo through the aesthetics of later ages. The platform on which the temple stands, the stylobate, curves upward ever so slightly at its center, a rise of just about 2.5 inches over its 200-foot length. The columns themselves bulge almost imperceptibly, a swelling known as intosses, and they all lean inward toward the temple's central axis. To the builders using simple ropes and levels, this would have seemed a bewildering complication. Why go to such extraordinary effort? The answer lies in a sophisticated understanding of human vision. On such a grand scale, true straight lines can play tricks on the mind. A perfectly level platform viewed from one end can appear to sag in the middle under the weight of the building above. Perfectly parallel columns can seem to narrow distressingly as they rise, creating a fragile, pinched look. The Parthenon's architects engineered an optical countermeasure. The upward curve of the platform preemptively counters the illusion of sagging, making the entire structure appear solidly planted and resilient. The intosses of the columns gives them a muscular, vital appearance, as if they are swelling slightly under the load they bear, imbuing them with a sense of organic strength rather than static rigidity. This was a profound psychological insight crystallized in stone. The monument was not built for the gods alone, but for the mortal citizens who would approach it. Its perfection was not an abstract geometric ideal, but a perfected experience crafted for the way people actually see. This willingness to deviate from mathematical truth to achieve a higher perceptual truth represents a subtle art often overshadowed in later eras. In our age of computer-aided design, where absolute precision is not only possible but expected, we can easily prioritize the purity of the digital model over the experience of the physical viewer. The Parthenon's refinements whisper a different priority, that the ultimate judge of a building's success is not the blueprint, but the human standing before it, and that sometimes true harmony requires a knowing, graceful bend. Granite does not yield its secrets easily. In the highlands of Ethiopia, a sacred landscape was not built but revealed, one agonizing chip at a time. The churches of Lalibela, carved in the 12th century, stand as monuments to a technology of profound subtraction, a masterclass in thinking in reverse. Every other structure we have explored was assembled piece by piece, growing upward from a foundation. Lalibela's 11 churches did the opposite. They were excavated downward, sculpted from the top of a single, massive living rock formation. This is not construction, it is revelation, a process that required a kind of visionary foresight we can barely comprehend. The master planners faced a puzzle with no room for error. First, they would have trenched deep, open moats around a gigantic block of solid granite, isolating it from the surrounding plateau. Only then, standing within these newly created stone pits, would they begin the meticulous work of hollowing out the interior, carving columns, arches, windows, and vaulted ceilings from the rock that remained. This is negative space engineering. They were not placing stones, they were defining the precise emptiness where worship would happen, ensuring the leftover rock mass was structurally stable enough to stand as walls and roofs. A single miscalculation, one column carved too thin, and the entire monolith could become a tomb. The lost technology here is not a material, but a methodology. How did they plan such an irreversible feat? Historians suggest they likely used scaled models made of clay or wood, and intricate string layouts on the rock surface to map every interior feature before the first hammer struck. The tools themselves are a mystery. Working this incredibly hard granite with iron chisels and hammers would have been a monumental labor, requiring not just strength, but a generational patience and a spiritual resolve that saw the church as already present within the stone, waiting only to be freed. Lalibela represents the ultimate act of architectural faith, a testament to a society that could hold a perfect, finished vision in their collective mind for decades, slowly, faithfully removing everything that was not the sacred space. Mud can be a form of intelligence. In the heart of Mali, the great Mosque of Djenné rises from the earth like a living dune, its smooth, sculpted form crowned with hundreds of wooden spikes. As the largest mud brick structure in the world, it is not a relic of simple materials, but a monument to a forgotten science of earth and air, a masterwork of bioclimatic architecture perfected over generations. Its technology is one of profound patience and dialogue with an extreme environment. The primary innovation is in the very substance of its walls, a thick, resilient adobe made from local clay, rice husks, and shea butter. This mixture creates immense thermal mass. As the brutal Saharan sun beats down, the walls do not simply heat up, they absorb the energy slowly, acting as a giant heat battery. Then, as the desert night brings a sharp chill, the walls release that stored warmth back into the interior, naturally moderating the temperature and creating a stable, comfortable space for prayer and community. This is a building that breathes with the rhythm of the day, but the walls are not passive. Look closely at those hundreds of protruding wooden rods called toran. While they serve as permanent scaffolding for the annual replastering festival, their true genius is environmental. Each rod creates a small pocket of shadow on the wall's surface, a network of micro shades that significantly reduces direct solar heating and, crucially, minimizes the thermal stress that causes cracking as the material expands and contracts. They are like the pores of a giant organism regulating its temperature. The system completes itself above. Hot air, being lighter, naturally rises within the prayer hall. Strategically placed ventilation openings in the roof allow this warm air to escape, drawing cooler air in from the shaded ground level, creating a continuous, passive airflow without a single fan. This entire integrated system was developed through centuries of communal observation and adaptation, a sustainable building science that used only local materials and an intimate understanding of physics. In an age of energy-intensive climate control, the mosque stands as a quiet, elegant lesson, asking if the most advanced solution might sometimes be the one that simply and wisely listens to the earth. Gravity itself can be a designer. The monumental entrance to the Shah Mosque in Isfahan does not confront you with a rigid frame, but with a soaring, fluid embrace of space. This vaulted portal, known as an iwan, curves overhead with a perfection that feels both mathematical and natural because it is. Its shape is not a random arc or a simple semicircle. It is a catenary, the exact curve formed by a chain hanging freely between 2 points. This is a forgotten technology of pure form, where the builders did not fight the force of gravity. They invited it to show them the strongest shape possible. In a structure made of brick, a material strong under compression but weak when pulled or bent, this was the ultimate optimization. A perfect catenary arch, when loaded from above, theoretically experiences no tensile forces at all, only pure, even compression pushing each brick firmly against its neighbor. It is a self-supporting system of incredible stability, a shape where gravity's own logic becomes the architecture's greatest strength. The genius lies in how they found it. Medieval Persian mathematicians and master builders likely arrived at this optimal form not through abstract calculus, which was not yet developed, but through brilliant empirical modeling. They would have observed the graceful drape of a hanging chain, a necklace, or a heavy rope, and recognized its inherent strength. By freezing that inverted curve in plaster or drawing it on a tracing floor, they could transpose nature's solution into brick and mortar. This was physics learned through hands and eyes, a profound dialogue between observation and material limitation. The result was an entrance that is both a breathtaking aesthetic statement and a marvel of structural efficiency, proving that the most advanced engineering can sometimes be a humble act of mimicry, of listening to the quiet wisdom of the physical world. A hidden room demands more than just a secret door, it must breathe. In the tense religious landscape of Tudor England, the simple act of faith could become a matter of life or loss. Catholic priests, forbidden by law, relied on the ingenuity of a different kind of architect, one whose medium was not grandeur but invisibility. Craftsmen like Nicholas Owen, a humble carpenter, dedicated their lives to building secrets into the very bones of manor houses. Their creations were known as priest holes, and they represent a forgotten technology of clandestine architecture, a masterclass in concealment and survival. This was not about adding a room, but about carving a functional void from the structure's existing fabric without leaving a trace. The challenge was immense. A hiding place needed ventilation to prevent suffocation, yet any air shaft could betray its location. It required absolute silence so a priest's movements wouldn't echo. Most crucially, it needed an access point so perfectly disguised that a team of royal pursuivants, methodically tapping walls and measuring rooms, could spend days in the house and never find it. The solutions were breathtakingly clever. Access might be through a pivoting section of wooden paneling, its seams lost in the intricate linenfold carving. A trigger could be a specific floorboard that had to be pressed in a precise sequence, or a hidden lever disguised as a structural peg in a timber frame. Some holes were built behind fireplaces, using the soot-blackened bricks as perfect camouflage, while others were tucked into the confusing space under staircases, with a false wall that aligned perfectly with the rising steps. Nicholas Owen, a small man himself, became a legend for his ability to design multi-chambered labyrinths within thick walls, complete with separate spaces for a priest and his vestments, and even primitive sanitary arrangements. His work required a profound, almost surgical understanding of a building's anatomy. He had to know which beams were load-bearing and could not be cut, and how to reroute weight around the new hollow spaces to keep the entire house stable. This was architecture applied not for glory, but for profound personal protection. Each priest hole is a monument to a quiet rebellion, a testament to how the deepest knowledge of how things are built can be used to preserve what someone believes in, a technology where the greatest success was leaving no evidence it was ever there at all. The roof is the first line of defense against a mountain's fury. Perched on the spine of the world, the ancient monasteries of Tobo and Alchai in the Himalayas are shielded by a silent, shimmering armor, sheets of metal that have weathered centuries of brutal sun and crushing snow. This is not imported tin or lead, but locally sourced zinc, a material choice that represents a forgotten peak of isolated metallurgical science. Working with zinc is a notoriously delicate art. Unlike iron or copper, zinc has a relatively low boiling point, meaning it can vaporize and be lost if smelted with the direct, high-heat methods used for other metals. The communities of the high valleys developed a specialized early method, likely using a distillation process in sealed clay retorts to capture the metal vapor and condense it into a workable form. This was chemistry conducted at the roof of the world. Once they had the raw metal, the next challenge was forming it. Through techniques lost to the wider world for generations, they learned to roll or hammer the zinc into thin, remarkably durable sheets. The result was a roofing material of extraordinary resilience. Zinc naturally forms a protective patina of zinc carbonate, a hard, stable layer that shields the metal beneath from corrosion. This self-healing skin made it impervious to the intense ultraviolet radiation at high altitude, which degrades many other materials. Its flexibility allowed it to withstand the immense weight of Himalayan snows, bending rather than cracking under the load. This was a technology born of absolute necessity and deep observation, a perfect adaptation to a specific, extreme environment. It stands as a powerful reminder that innovation is not always a product of connected, resource-rich empires. Sometimes it flourishes most brilliantly in isolation, where a community's survival depends on unlocking the hidden potential of the single resource they have, turning a difficult metal into a legacy that gleams against the endless sky. A stone face peers from the shadows of a cathedral capitol, its mouth a silent fountain of stone leaves and vines. The Green Man is a quiet resident of medieval Europe, his leafy gaze meeting ours from 100 pulpits and doorways. To see him as mere decoration is to miss the point entirely. This recurring motif represents a forgotten dual technology, one of symbolic language and of supreme stonecraft, a method of weaving the deep forest into the very fabric of the church. The first technology is narrative. In a society where few could read written words, the church walls became a three-dimensional book. The Green Man, with his obvious ties to ancient cycles of growth, decay, and rebirth, served as a powerful bridge. By carving his image alongside saints and biblical scenes, medieval artisans performed a subtle act of cultural synthesis. They acknowledged the older, earth-based beliefs of the local community, not to erase them, but to graft them onto the new Christian story, suggesting the divine could be found in the burgeoning life of the oak as well as the pages of Scripture. This was a technology of memory and inclusion, using symbolism to make a new theology feel familiar, rooted in the very landscape its people knew. But the second, more tangible technology is in the carving itself. To make hard limestone or sandstone appear to sprout soft, supple leaves required a master's touch. The sculptor had to think in layers, using high relief to create a sense of life bursting from the stone. This demanded an intimate knowledge of the material's grain and fracture points, knowing exactly how deep to cut to make a vine seem to curl freely without snapping it from the block. The tools, simple chisels and mallets, became extensions of the artist's intent, translating a complex idea of nature's fecundity into the most permanent medium available. In this silent stone face, we find a perfect fusion where the message and the material are one, a durable capsule of cultural memory designed to outlast the generations that first understood its whispered meaning. The lagoon holds more secrets than water. In a city built on a paradox where stone must float, the true foundation of Venice is not marble but a submerged forest. Look up at the campanile of St. Mark's, its brick shaft rising nearly 300 feet above the piazza. That staggering weight does not rest on solid ground, but on a hidden masterpiece of medieval hydro-engineering, a forgotten technology of profound adaptation. When the original builders began work in the 9th century, they faced an impossible puzzle. Beneath the shimmering water lay only layers of soft silt and unstable clay, a foundation that would swallow any conventional stone footing. Their solution was to think like the forest and the sea simultaneously. They sourced thousands of long, straight trunks of alder and larch from the mainland forests. These trees were not simply dropped into the mud, they were driven down with relentless force, pile by pile, through the soft upper layers until each one hit the caranto, a deeper, denser stratum of compressed clay. This was not guesswork but an applied science of soil mechanics, a generational understanding of what lay beneath the lagoon. The real genius, however, lies in what happened next, in the silent chemistry of preservation. Once submerged and packed tightly together in the oxygen-poor silt, these wooden piles entered a state of suspended animation. The anaerobic environment prevented the growth of fungi and bacteria that cause rot, effectively petrifying the wood in place. Over centuries, the minerals in the water further hardened them. This dense, submerged forest does not act like a rigid post, but like a flexible, living raft. It distributes the immense load of the tower across a vast area, allowing the entire structure to sway and settle as one cohesive unit with the shifting sediments below. The water, the very element that made construction seem impossible, became the essential preservative, the active ingredient in the foundation's longevity. This was a technology born from intimate dialogue with a specific, challenging place. It represents a complete inversion of typical land-based logic, where the enemy, water, was recruited as the primary ally. Modern geotechnical engineers still study these principles when building on soft ground, rediscovering the wisdom of using friction and buoyancy rather than fighting them. The Campanile and Venice itself stands as a monument to this elegant, forgotten pact, a testament to the idea that the greatest stability is sometimes found not by conquering nature's constraints, but by learning to build within its gentle, enduring rhythms. The silent bronze giants of Beijing have been waiting for the stars to return. High on a stone platform in the heart of the city, the Beijing Ancient Observatory stands as a gallery of colossal instruments, where astronomy was not merely observed but physically engineered on a breathtaking scale. Among them, the armillary spheres command the most intricate rings of metal within rings, each one a model of the heavens forged in bronze. While built in the later medieval period under the Ming and Qing dynasties, these devices represent a forgotten technological synthesis, a fusion of art, science, and statecraft that viewed the cosmos as a system to be measured with perfect, tangible precision. This was not a lone telescope pointed at the dark, but an entire orchestra of instruments, each with a specific role in the grand concert of celestial mapping. The armillary sphere itself was a mechanical universe, its multiple rotating rings representing celestial equator, ecliptic, and meridians could be aligned to track the sun, moon, and planets against the fixed stars. But the forgotten technology here is not the astronomical principle, which was known elsewhere, but the staggering physical execution. To craft a functional, accurate model of the sky required three distinct arts operating in flawless harmony. The first was advanced metallurgy, creating these giant, complex rings some over 10 feet in diameter, as single, stable castings was a feat of foundry mastery. The bronze alloy had to be perfectly formulated to resist corrosion over centuries and to minimize thermal expansion and contraction, which would warp the delicate scales engraved upon it. Any flaw in the casting process, a bubble or a weak point, would render the entire monumental effort useless. Once cooled, the second art began, the precision engraving. Master craftsmen, likely working from calculations provided by court astronomers, hand-cut the fine degree markings and zodiacal symbols into the hard bronze with astonishing accuracy. A single miscut line at this stage would introduce error into every measurement the instrument would ever take. Finally, there was the mechanical engineering. These were not static sculptures. The rings moved on axes, supported by elaborate stands carved with dragons and cloud motifs, and the most advanced models incorporated early geared systems to simulate celestial motions. This was clockwork for the cosmos, built before the mechanical clock had fully reached its own maturity in Europe. The purpose of this immense investment was profoundly holistic. Accurate celestial data was essential for the mandate of heaven, the philosophical backbone of imperial rule. It allowed for the precise reform of the lunar calendar, which governed agriculture and state rituals. It refined navigational techniques and represented the empire's intellectual command over natural order. In this one platform, the roles of the artist, the metallurgist, the engineer, and the mathematician were inseparable, all directed toward a single goal of understanding. Our modern world has separated these disciplines into distinct fields, each with its own language and institutions. The silent bronze rings of Beijing remind us of a different paradigm, where to comprehend the universe, you first had to build a perfect, beautiful, and working copy of it here on Earth. A secret conversation is traveling the curve of the dome, a private word passed like a breath along a stone wire. High within the inner skin of St. Paul's Cathedral, the Whispering Gallery performs an acoustic magic trick that has captivated visitors for centuries. A person standing at one point of this circular walkway can press their lips close to the wall, murmur a phrase almost inaudibly to anyone beside them, and have that whisper arrive with startling clarity 112 feet away, directly opposite. This is not a vague echo, but a focused transmission, a private channel carved from geometry and air. The forgotten technology here is not a device, but a shaped environment, a perfect marriage of form and physics designed to bend sound itself. The gallery's power lies in its flawless circular path and its hard, smooth surface of stone and plaster. When a whisper is directed along the wall, its sound waves do not radiate outward into the vast space of the dome's interior where they would scatter and fade. Instead, they are captured, compelled to travel along the concave curve like a train on a track. The smoothness of the surface minimizes friction and absorption, allowing the wave to journey the entire circumference with minimal loss of energy. What reaches the listener's ear is not the whisper's origin, but its ghost, preserved and delivered with intimate precision. Sir Christopher Wren and his master craftsmen almost certainly arrived at this marvel, not through a formal understanding of sound wave theory, but through brilliant empirical observation. They would have experimented with models, tested plaster samples, and listened. They understood through practice that certain curves and finishes could conduct sound in surprising ways, and they had the confidence to scale that intuition up into a monumental feature. This reveals a profound layer of their architectural thinking. The dome was engineered for structural triumph and spiritual awe, but within that grand statement, they carved a space for playful, personal wonder. The Whispering Gallery is a technology of experience, a deliberate manipulation of architectural form to create a specific, memorable phenomenon that turns every visitor into both a sender and a receiver of secrets. It transforms the act of listening into an active discovery, proving that the most sophisticated engineering could also be designed for quiet, shared delight. In a world now filled with digital transmitters and wireless signals, this stone conduit asks us to consider what other simple, elegant channels for human connection we might design into the very spaces we inhabit. A city gate is not merely an opening in a wall, it is a calculated conversation. In the silent, sun-bleached streets of Mdina, Malta's ancient fortified capital, the main entrance holds a quiet, cunning intelligence. This is not a grand, welcoming arch, but a psychological maze cast in stone, a forgotten technology of controlled chaos known as a bent entrance or chicane. To step inside is to be immediately disarmed, your momentum stolen by the geometry of the place itself. The principle is devastatingly simple, yet its execution required a master's understanding of human movement under duress. An attacking force, no matter how numerous, could not simply ram the gates and flood into the city streets. Instead, they were funneled into a narrow, twisting corridor, forced to make a sharp 90-degree turn directly under the walls. This single, deliberate kink in the path, this dogleg, transformed the gate from a doorway into a death trap. The forgotten technology here operates on two levels, the physical and the mental. Physically, it creates a perfect killing zone. As invaders squeezed through the outer portal and stumbled around the tight corner, they were exposed from above and from the sides. Defenders on the ramparts and in flanking bastions had clear, overlapping fields of fire, turning the cramped passage into a funnel of vulnerability. But perhaps more brilliant was the psychological warfare. A charge relies on collective force and forward momentum, a wave of energy crashing against a point. The bent entrance shatters that wave. It breaks the assault into a confused, shuffling line, stripping away the terrifying cohesion of a unified rush. Each soldier rounding the corner is momentarily isolated, disoriented, and vulnerable, his view of the city beyond completely blocked until the last possible second. This micro-scale application of defensive genius required exquisite planning. Architects had to calculate sight lines with precision, ensuring no blind spots where attackers could gather. They designed the depth and angle of the turn to maximize exposure while minimizing the space for siege engines to operate. Every stone was placed to guide an enemy into a state of maximum disadvantage. This approach represents a pinnacle of medieval military thinking applied at the intimate scale of a threshold. It is urban defense refined to an art form, where the very act of entering becomes a gauntlet. With the rise of gunpowder artillery and broader, cannon-accessible avenues, this technology of the tight turn gradually faded, a subtle art of obstruction made obsolete by brute force. Yet, standing in the shadow of Medina's gate, you feel its enduring logic, a reminder that sometimes the strongest defense is not a thicker wall, but a smarter, more thoughtful path. The artist's true canvas was not the surface, but a chemical reaction unfolding in real time. High above the floor of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's monumental ceiling is a Renaissance vision painted with a medieval chemist's hand. While the subject matter broke from tradition, the method was ancient and unforgiving, a forgotten technology of permanence called buon fresco, or true fresco. This was not painting on a wall, but painting with the wall itself, a delicate partnership between human creativity and the silent, transformative power of lime. The process began each morning with the preparation of the intonaco, a fresh, smooth layer of wet plaster made from slaked lime and sand. Into this damp, alkaline surface, the artist had to work with both speed and absolute precision. He would apply pigments ground from minerals like lapis lazuli for blue or ochre for earth tones mixed only with pure water. The magic and the immense risk happened as the plaster dried. A chemical marriage took place between the wet lime and the carbon dioxide in the air, a process called carbonation. This reaction formed a thin, crystalline skin of calcium carbonate, and as it solidified, it permanently trapped the pigment particles within the very matrix of the wall. The painting did not sit on the surface, it became the surface, a fusion so complete that to remove the image would require destroying the plaster itself. The forgotten mastery here was one of brutal logistics and perfect timing. Michelangelo and his team had to plan their work in small, manageable sections called giornate, meaning day's work, because each patch of intonaco had to be painted in the single day it took to dry from damp to set. They transferred their full-scale cartoon sketches onto the wet plaster by tracing the lines or pouncing dust through perforations, a guide that would be swallowed by pigment within hours. They had to judge the plaster's consistency perfectly, knowing that if it dried too quickly, the pigments would not bind, and if it was too wet, the colors would run and blur. This was art as a race against a chemical clock, a daily act of faith where mistakes were literally set in stone, requiring the painful and laborious scraping away of the entire section to start again. In our modern era of stable, portable acrylics and oils on canvas, buon fresco represents a different philosophy of art altogether. It was not meant to be moved, sold, or even easily restored. It was a covenant with the future, a material science for immortality, where the artist's energy was poured into a reaction designed to outlast empires. The ceiling's enduring vibrancy, despite centuries of candle smoke and the passage of millions of breaths, is the ultimate testament to this lost alchemy. a silent reminder that the most enduring human expressions are sometimes those that choose to become one with the very fabric of the building that holds them. The desert's most precious commodity was not gold, but winter itself. Across the vast, arid plateaus of Persia, a civilization thrived not by fighting the relentless sun, but by learning to harvest the cold. Their monuments to this art were the yakchul, the ice pits, unassuming domes of mud brick that performed a quiet miracle, preserving ice through the fiercest summer heat using nothing but physics and profound observation. This was a forgotten technology of passive refrigeration, a zero-energy system that turned the desert's own rhythms against it. The process began in the depth of winter. Builders would construct shallow, shaded canals leading to the yakchul. On the coldest nights, water was channeled into these trenches. The dry desert air, combined with the clear, radiant cooling into the night sky, would cause the water to freeze, often in thin, layered sheets. But the real genius was in the storage. The ice was broken up and transferred into a deep, underground pit at the heart of the structure, a chamber dug into the cool earth. Over this pit rose a distinctive conical dome built from a special mortar called sarouj, a mixture of sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair that dried into an exceptional insulator. This dome was not just a roof, it was a thermal regulator. Its shape minimized surface area exposed to the sun, while its thick walls and insulating properties created a massive thermal buffer. Often a Badgir, a windcatcher, would rise from the structure. At night, it would capture the cool, dense air and funnel it down into the pit, actively chilling the stored ice. During the day, the warm air would rise and escape through vents at the top, maintaining a stable, frigid microclimate deep within the earth. The builder's mastery was holistic. They needed a precise understanding of evaporative cooling to create the ice. They had to calculate the thermal mass of their walls and the insulating properties of their unique mortar. Most crucially, they required a generational knowledge of subsurface geology, knowing exactly where to dig to find the coolest, driest earth for their storage pits. This was not a luxury for the few, but a vital public utility. The preserved ice allowed for food storage, cooled drinks for medicinal purposes, and even enabled the creation of early frozen desserts. It represented a pinnacle of sustainable environmental manipulation, a perfect partnership with a harsh climate that created abundance from apparent scarcity. In our age of energy, intensive compressors, and global cold chains, the silent, domed yakchul poses a profound question. What other elegant, passive solutions have we overlooked in our rush to plug everything in? The final monument stands not in defiance of the Earth's tremors, but in graceful collaboration with them. In the quiet temple precincts of Japan, pagodas like the ancient 5-story treasure at Hagia have survived over 14 centuries of relentless seismic activity, not because they are rigid and unyielding, but because they are designed to dance. Their secret is a forgotten technology of dynamic flexibility, an architecture that treats an earthquake not as an enemy to withstand, but as a force to be gently, cleverly absorbed. At first glance, the towering wooden structure appears to be a stack of separate roofs, each tier distinct, but this modular appearance is the key to its genius. The pagoda is not a single, monolithic tower. It is built as a series of independent box-like frames, each one stacked upon the other. They are not fastened together with nails or glue, which would create a brittle, singular unit prone to snapping under stress. Instead, master carpenters employed an astonishing array of complex interlocking joints, wooden puzzles that lock the pieces of each frame together with incredible precision, yet allow each entire floor to shift and rock independently of the others. This is a building made of moving parts. The true heart of the system, however, is the enigmatic central pillar, the Shinbashira. To the untrained eye, it looks like a massive load-bearing column running up the core of the structure. But that is a brilliant architectural illusion. In many of the oldest pagodas, this central pillar does not actually touch the ground at its base, nor does it support the weight of the roofs above it. Instead, it hangs suspended from the apex of the building, like a giant pendulum or a counterweight. When an earthquake strikes, the flexible joints allow each stacked module to sway in a different rhythm, a phenomenon known as differential movement. This alone dissipates a tremendous amount of the quake's destructive energy, preventing it from concentrating in one spot. Then, the heavy, hanging Shinbashera begins to swing in the opposite direction of the building's sway. Its motion acts as a massive inertial damper, a passive stabilizer that counters and calms the oscillations, preventing them from building into a catastrophic resonance. The entire structure becomes a sophisticated shock absorber, rocking and settling rather than cracking and collapsing. This technology was not born from a single theoretical breakthrough, but from centuries of empirical observation and iterative refinement in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. Generations of builders watched how certain structures failed and others survived, slowly codifying that hard-won knowledge into a construction tradition. They learned to select specific, resilient woods and to craft joints that were tight enough for stability but loose enough for life-saving movement. Modern structural engineers now study these ancient pagodas with profound respect, seeing in them a precursor to base isolation systems and tuned mass dampers used in today's skyscrapers. The pagoda does not represent a fight against nature's power, but a deep, respectful conversation with it. It is a monument to the idea that true resilience is not about being unbreakable, but about knowing exactly how to bend. Surveying these 30 monuments together, a powerful pattern emerges from the stone, wood, and earth. They were not isolated triumphs, but variations on a shared philosophy of creation, one built from common threads that weave a strikingly different definition of technology. The first and most vital thread is a profound integration with the local environment. These builders did not see the landscape as a blank slate to be conquered, but as a partner with its own logic and gifts. They listened to the wind and used it to cool, studied the path of the sun and used it to mark time, felt the pull of gravity and used it to find the strongest shape. The Yakchul ice house did not fight the desert cold, it harvested it. The stave church did not battle the damp Nordic forest, it learned to breathe with it. This was a dialogue, not a monologue, and it led to solutions that were perfectly, sustainably adapted to their place. This deep environmental connection was possible because of a second unifying theme, a holistic world where art, science, and spirituality were inseparable partners. The master builder was not a specialist in just one field. The geometry that stabilized a cathedral vault was the same geometry that symbolized divine order. The acoustics that clarified a chant were designed for auditory transcendence. The ventilation shaft that gave life to an underground city was an engineering marvel with a sacred purpose, survival. There was no division between the beautiful and the functional, the practical and the profound. Every calculation served a higher purpose, and every aesthetic choice was rooted in physical law. This unity of vision meant that efficiency was measured not just in output, but in meaning, in creating spaces that nurtured both the body and the spirit for generations. How did they achieve this? A third thread points to their methodology, a relentless reliance on empirical observation and material intelligence over abstract theory. These were not laboratory scientists, but consummate experimenters. They learned by doing, by watching, by failing, and by remembering. A carpenter knew how green oak would shrink and tighten a joint because he had watched it happen for a lifetime. A mason knew which local clay, mixed with which ash, would create a self-healing mortar because his predecessors had tested countless recipes against the rain. They developed an intuitive, tactile understanding of their materials, treating stone, wood, and mud not as inert commodities, but as living substances with personalities and potentials to be unlocked. Their technology was hands-on, a wisdom stored in the muscles and passed down through practice. This approach naturally led to a fourth theme: sustainability as a necessary consequence, not a conscious choice. With no access to global supply chains or massive energy inputs, longevity was the only metric that mattered. A solution had to work for centuries with minimal maintenance, using only what was available locally. This constraint became the mother of breathtaking invention. It forced builders to design systems that worked with natural forces, creating the passive cooling of windcatchers, the tidal rhythm of the mill, the seismic dance of the pagoda. Their sustainability was not an add-on, it was the core design brief, and it is why their monuments still stand, quietly functioning, long after the empires that built them have faded. So why were these brilliant approaches forgotten? The rupture often traces back to the Industrial Revolution and the philosophical shift it ushered in. The new paradigm valued centralized production, standardized parts, and universal solutions that could be replicated anywhere, anytime. It championed power over place, abstraction over intimacy, and speed over longevity. The deeply location-specific, craft-based knowledge embedded in these monuments became seen as inefficient, slow, and unscientific. The windcatcher was replaced by the electric fan, the tide mill by the coal-fired engine, the empirical wisdom of the carpenter by the standardized blueprint. We gained incredible scale and convenience, but we lost a vital conversation with our local environments and materials. In the end, these 30 monuments offer us more than a tour of ancient wonders. They offer a mirror reflecting a different path for human ingenuity. Their legacy whispers that true technology is not merely about increasing power or control. It is about cultivating harmony, achieving longevity, and weaving our creations into the enduring patterns of the world around us. They challenge us to ask, in our pursuit of the new, what profound and elegant wisdoms have we left behind in the quiet stones? Their silent libraries of stone offer a quiet revolution, not of machinery, but of mindset. From the floating dome of Hagia Sophia to the seismic dance of Japanese pagodas, our journey reveals a hidden history of human ingenuity written not in scrolls, but in load-bearing walls and clever curves. These structures are far more than monuments. They are archives of applied wisdom, each one a preserved thought process holding secrets of sustainability, resilience, and profound beauty that speak with startling clarity to our modern challenges. They teach us that the most advanced technology is not always the loudest or the newest. Often, it is the quiet intelligence that works in concert with nature, that endures not in spite of time, but because of a deep understanding of it. Look at the principles, not just the products. The windcatcher did not fight the desert heat, it conversed with it. The tidal mill did not resist the moon's pull, it partnered with it. The pagoda did not stand rigid against the quake, it learned to sway. This is a different kind of progress, measured in generations of quiet function rather than quarterly cycles of obsolescence. As we navigate our own pressing crises of resource and climate, the path forward may indeed involve a thoughtful look back. Not to copy these ancient forms directly, for our world is different, but to understand the timeless principles they embody. Principles of local adaptation, of material intelligence, of designing with the forces of the world rather than against them. They ask us to reconsider what we label as innovation. Is it only the flashy new gadget, or can it also be the rediscovery of an elegant, low-energy solution that has been waiting patiently in plain sight for centuries? These silent teachers surround us in the old city centers and the remote landscapes, holding forgotten conversations with wind, water, stone, and sun. Their greatest lesson may be one of humility and observation. They remind us that some of the most powerful tools for our future are not waiting to be invented in a lab. but might be patiently preserved in the walls that have already stood the test of time. What forgotten wisdom might we yet rediscover in the architecture of our own communities? Which monument's hidden technology most inspires your view of what is possible? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to keep exploring the hidden layers of our shared past.